To get a sense of how the week has been for India at the World Economic Forum in Davos, we are joined now at the India Pavilion by Senior Minister in the Modi government, Smriti Irani. Smriti ji, thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure.
You've been here as a young global leader, you've come now as a leading minister in the Indian government. What's your big takeaway from Davos 23?
I think the India story is one of resilience, resurgence, competition, but collaboration. We are four ministers in the delegation of India, and we all say the same story, which is the quintessential India story of change. How so? Minister R.K. Singh is responsible for renewables and the green growth story, and the green growth capacities in global economies is the buzzword at Davos that India has pronounced the world's largest hydrogen mission has been the talk of this town, that India has led in the issue of climate change and climate action financing, and the Prime Minister's mantra of life individualizes responsibility towards climate change. Again, is much appreciated from a sustainability and a circular economy perspective. Additionally, we were also led by Mansukh Mandavia, the health minister, who has done contributions to the shipping lines, port development, roads. But the healthcare story of India has been fascinating for people, especially given the solutions India gave during the pandemic. That with a back to the wall, we actually had resilient supply chains that address the pharmacological vaccination needs not only of India, but we also became suppliers to 150 countries from an empathetic point of view. We actually became the pharmacy of the world during the pandemic, but we did not profit from their misery. We did it in a competitive, low cost fashion, but we ensured that the highest standards of quality was maintained. I think that is the healthcare buzzword that I see. The fact that Ashwini Vaishnav told the digital India story, people were astounded that in a time where pandemics brought governments to its knees in India, we had a digital identity created for 1.3 billion citizens, that we had cash transfers done digitally, that we had the healthcare system, including many nations were writing vaccination slips by hand, and India had the CoWIN platform, that we are using space technology for building public infrastructure, that we have a space mission that is opened up and helping over 100 startups. And I have the distinct privilege of reflecting on the inclusive growth story of India, that at the altar of reform and at the altar of rapid and accelerated industrialization prospects of India, we at the same time maintained our social investments. We did not look at it from a welfare perspective, but the government of India, under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, changed the narrative and brought about a shift in the approach towards social spend, use that social spend to fuel the economy, fuel consumption, use that social spend to ensure that baseline infrastructure for a larger public good was done. And I think what has also created a lot of excitement is India hosting the G20. The fact that the Indian experiences will now find a place not only at the G20 table, but the fact that India will also speak for the global south is a topic of much conversation.
So let's spend a moment on the G20 agenda from your perspective. The message that you've brought over here in terms of what you think could potentially be India's lasting legacy as president of the G20.
I think that apart from the digital transformation, apart from the healthcare prospects, apart from strategizing and mainstreaming the skills agenda, complementing the academic agenda, apart from financing of small businesses and looking at facilitating large investments, as a woman, what is exciting for me is that for the first time in the history of the G20, women led development is not on the sidelines, but as not only a phrase, but as a government or governance ethic has found center stage. Prime Minister Modi has made an economic case for gender justice, and that also has fascinated many conversations, many coalitions of not only women, but also investors who contribute to women owned businesses or businesses that are conscious of the diversity factor. I think that has also found a lot of resonance here, and I'm sure it'll reflect at the G20 agenda as well.
For many years in the past, China used to be the star attraction of the World Economic Forum. At this moment, China has a very minimal presence. And as you walk down the promenade, it's India all the way. It almost seems as if it's like the India promenade rather than the WEF promenade. Uh, there's a lot of talk of many global companies wanting to diversify out of China as part of a China plus one rearrangement of global supply chains. To what extent do you think India is poised to be the main beneficiary of this global alignment?
Well, to use a very Indian adage, do you want to be an economic stepney to any country? I would not want to name a specific country, but when Prime Minister Modi speaks about the Make in India component of our manufacturing and our assembly lines, he speaks not from a spirit of competition, but he speaks from the spirit or from the standpoint of leveraging the talent pool we have in India. What has the pandemic taught the world about us? That we can repurpose our manufacturing to serve industries which were never thought of before. For instance, the PPE story in India or the vaccine story in India. If you look at our historical context vis-a-vis vaccine, many challenges have come before in terms of the health scares the globe has seen. India was always last in the line to receive the vaccination help that it deserved. And Prime Minister Modi decided, and I think that it's a compliment to his tenacity, that he decided when everybody said it's cheaper or it's easier to import on conditions that corporations the world over deem fit and not conditions that are equal to the sovereign right of India. Let's just do the import and be done with it. Prime Minister Modi exhibited his continued belief in the Indian capacity to domestically manufacture our vaccine, meeting the standards set by WHO, meeting the processing or the manufacturing framework of the WHO, and ended up making a vaccine in India, administered 200 crore vaccine doses with the help of technology, with the help of a workforce. And I think we did that not because we were in competition with any other country. Every country was servicing their national needs. But I think it was not only a part of an evidenced approach of how industry, government, state, local bodies, and citizens can come together. And that has been a huge curve in the investment story or the manufacturing capacity story of India. I was in a conversation with Mr. Chandra, who leads Tata Sons, and we both came to one agreement. I would rather talk about India plus one.
Interesting.
Because we compete, but we collaborate. We know when things are perilous, but we don't profit from that misery. And we have proven that our supply chains are so strong, we will never leverage them for our geopolitical needs to prove a political point at the world stage. And I think that is what now nations and investors across the world are interested in. Because the question that I asked gently to a group of people was, are you assured that this is the last challenge we face globally? And everybody said, no, we don't know where the next disaster is, around what corner. I said, but you know that wherever there is a challenge, India will show up with the solution that they agreed upon.
Former RBI Governor Raghuram Rajan
Oh,
was at the
yes, I
World
saw your
Economic
interview.
Forum, and I had the opportunity to ask him about his participation in the Bharat Jodo Yatra of Rahul Gandhi. And he said that Rahul Gandhi, he thought, has been mischaracterized as a pappu, and that he's actually a very smart person who's trying to join India and bring it together. So, what do you think of? I'm very curious to know, since you beat Rahul Gandhi in Amethi, what do you think of Rahul Gandhi's Bharat Jodo Yatra and the fact that Raghuram Rajan has come out in this fashion and joined that yatra?
Well, like I said, I have the greatest respect for any academic, but I think that Davos is a space for productive economic engagement and not political conversation, which is not particularly prolific.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Okay, I have, which is fine. You're absolutely
I
in that.
think that there is no case made here for having a conversation about a political journey which was reduced to a t shirt.
Do you think it?
Does that help India's cause here at the summit, where we as Indians want to leverage our capacities, our talent, and tell the world, come invest in India? Would you put that as an example to say, oh, this is why you should come to India? No. What is the example that you bring forward to the global investment forums to say that come invest in India? The fact that we have a 700 million literate force of people, of which 600 million are a part of our workforce, the fact that we have the second largest workforce in AI in the world, the fact that we are number one in the global freelancing space, the fact in the world in all the STEM graduates, 40% of the female STEM graduates in the world are Indian women. The fact that if you look at even our academia today, you have leveraged in the year 2015, and I was Minister of Education then, I had the greatest privilege that the Prime Minister prepared us digitally, and we had created India's first MOOCs platform where close to 1 crore 75 lakh children study with over 2,000 courses. That during the pandemic, our capacity to digitally educate our children was seen, where 2.5 billion learning sessions were done in 30 languages. I think that that is the story that we need to discuss on forums such as this, because that is what needs support, that is what needs narrative, the latent Indian potential. And given that there are many and aspirations that have to be met, I would rather focus on that aspiration. And why do I say this? When we are at Davos, I'm sure Rahul, you've heard conversations around green growth. Everybody talks about climate action. Everybody talks about climate resilient infrastructure. India can proudly say that we domestically funded our climate ethic. And when we sit on the table with global investors who want to invest in clean productions, we tell them that we've had differentiated emission histories. It is time for you to pay up to repair that damage. I would rather focus on those conversations.
You were talking about upskilling. I remember a post that you put out where you had the opportunity to actually spend time
Oh, you are responsible. You are
immer-
responsible for
immersing
it.
yourself in an upskilling kind of program. Can you give us some sense about
I
that?
think that I owe that to you. I think 8 years ago, I had the opportunity, and I hope you never edit this, but I had the opportunity of sitting in an interview with you where I was denoted unpad. And I carried that weight, especially when you have a 12-year-old kid at home and they go to school, and suddenly everybody makes fun of them because some anchor in some TV channel said that your mother is a fool, and that is a great burden to carry for that child. But I think that with the pandemic, there have been many Indians who have upskilled or reskilled themselves. And I think that we should not reduce upskilling or reskilling to a particular segment of employees or workers. That a minister in the Modi government can find the time to study in a segregated fashion at Berkeley in fintech, which is not an administrative expertise area of hers. I think is speaks volumes about the opportunity of digital education. That I then was hungry enough to want to also study business analytics from Cambridge, and that I'm currently in my third year of Arden University of a bachelor's in social sciences. I think that what the Modi government, Mansukh Mandavia got his doctorate while he was minister, and I think that is what makes us such a eager team to work under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi. That every minute has to be wisely spent in either upskilling yourself so that you can apply yourself better to people's solutions. But you
No,
get
but
the credit
I
for
had
bringing
the
that shame, which I could turn to an educational
no, but to
solution.
find the time to be able to do this while you are minister engaged in the kind of activities that you are is
I
quite
think
incredible.
that what work ethic Narendra Modi has got to governance is the fact that do not think as a bureaucrat or as a politician, you know everything. One of the greatest privileges to serve as minister in your country is the fact that this is not a job. This is not a right that can be leveraged to exhibit arrogance. This is a privilege. And to fuel that privilege, you need to know what are the best practices, academic, industry, social for that matter, across the world, so that when you are confronted with an opportunity to frame policy, you can give a diverse worldview and somewhere juxtaposition it with your local needs. And I think that's a fantastic opportunity that I, at the age of 46 today, managed to do all that with a leader who's brought about a tectonic shift. I have been witness to the removal of Article 370. Who thought? I have been witness to bank accounts for 440 million people. Who ever thought that? I have been witness to see the PPE revolution happen in my country, a country which always imported PPE. I've had the greatest of joys now, as you and I talk in the Swiss Alps, knowing at this very moment there's a woman who's positioned at Siachen. That is a wonderful time to serve in India.
You've been speaking here a lot about women and development and integration, inclusivity, and you would have seen back home. There are many questions being asked by the opposition about a particular incident. I'm not sure of how much you've heard about the allegation by Vinesh Fogart against the Wrestling Federation chief. And a lot of the Congress wallas are saying, ask the Women and Child Development Minister, what does she have to say about this?
Like I said, I'm on foreign soil where I am to exhibit the best of Indian capacities. Insofar as the Congress's allegation as to what does the Women and Child Development Minister have to say about issues with regards to women's safety and security, and I would give here a rider that I personally know and engage with the Fogart sisters and including Bajrang Punia, and I have no political statements to make about them. I know that they're conscientious individuals. I will also say this, that as a representative of the government, when I do a comparative, and I do this with a deep sense of understanding that's a political compulsion because I have to respond to this question right now. In the year 2013, when the Congress was in power, they declared this very big announcement was made about the Nirbhaya Fund, as though they have committed themselves as a government, as a political entity, to safety and security of women. In 2014, when Modi government was formed, one found that not a rupee was spent out of that fund. There was no constitution of how that fund would percolate for safety and security of women at the grassroots or in cities, or for that matter, state capitals. Narendra Bhai was very conscientious of the fact that this is an institution that needs to be leveraged in collaboration with all ministries and all state governments. Since then, 9,000 crores worth of project, 100% funded by Government of India, have been not only assessed, but over 6,000 crores has been dispatched. And let me give you a small example. You must have seen it, but not known that it's funded by Government of India, and Narendra Modi's effort has gone behind it. Every police station in the country today has a women's help desk that is completely funded by the Modi government. Every forensic kit and forensic lab that you see now is because of that fund and because it's been applied to. 35 helplines have worked under that fund, and Narendra Modi set up a crisis center in 703 districts where a woman in crisis need not run from pillar to post for a lawyer, a doctor, police services, or a short stay home. It happens all under one roof. For the first time in the history of our country, anti human trafficking units to protect women and children better have been set up in every district of the country. Together today, if you look at the data, precise data with numbers, names, and identities of women and children, there are 220 million cases that have been serviced only under this one fund. Additionally, the Prime Minister was of the belief that is it suffice to say that we create an infrastructure where you can report, can we also accelerate access to justice? Over 1,063 fast track courts were also set up by this government. We have done this administrative judicial infrastructure so that women in an evolving economy who are met with challenges with regards to safety and security know that they have a government at their disposal that they can reach out to, and also a judiciary in collaboration with the government, police systems in collaboration with the government, which can attach themselves to solutions in a collaboration. Rahul, I've been Minister Gender for the past 3 years. We have passed legislation for POXO to make child pornography now a crime. We've set up structures in every district for juvenile justice, which had never happened before. I had the privilege of, under the Modi leadership, having witnessed both these bills, one on juvenile justice, the second on medical termination of pregnancy of women at 24 weeks, passed both houses of parliament, irrespective of our political friction, in unanimity. So, yes, it is the Congress's right to hunt for Smriti Irani everywhere, given how much they are smarting after I defeated, for the first time in the history of Indian democracy, the sitting Congress president, who is still walking and trying to find some kind of way to a new political destination. I wish him well. But I will say this, that the commitment of the Modi government towards safety and security is not only known, it has been tested and proved to be humane.
And finally, while India no longer looks at Pakistan as being an isolation, I had a conversation just a couple of hours ago with the Pakistani Foreign Minister Hina Rabani Khan, and for them, they seem to believe that a lot of the inability to make progress in South Asia is because of the Indian government. How do you respond at a time when India is acquiring a new stature globally? How do you respond to Pakistan seeming to allege that India is somehow holding South Asia back.
I think I'll leave the response best to my colleague Jaishankar on external affairs. I will just say this as an Indian citizen that it is a matter of great pride when you see the Indian Prime Minister and the Indian Foreign Minister keep India's interests first and not be apologetic about it. That in a world which is fragmented and looking for collaborations, India recognizes that yes, we all have differentiated responsibility, but on one issue where we have global consensus is the need to fight terrorism, and those who sponsor it need to be globally shamed. I don't think there is anybody who is conscious of human values who will deny India that stand.
I was at a couple of sessions where you were speaking, and after the session got over, there was a lot of very positive feedback for the quality of interventions that you've made. Smriti ji, thank you so much for your time. Great speaking to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.